Welcome to the colony, where we have three generations of nerdy guys talking about stuff.
Hey, welcome back. Corey here,
Mitch?
And Mike, how's it going?
and we're coming off of the February NHRL first round qualifiers. It was a pretty big event, a lot of heavy hitters in all the weight classes, a lot of memorable bots, and some bots even to keep an eye out for. Um, Definitely some robots that took everyone by surprise. I competed with Synthesis 30, and Mike competed with Stag Beetlebot. Um, so Mike, talk about your day. Talk about some prep going into this event, and then throughout the day, how did it go?
Well, what I normally like to do is have myself prepped up, like have a schedule of when I want things to get done by when, so I have time to, test and stuff like that. And I pretty much always fail that. So I had a little bit of a head start, so I had one complete copy ready to go, and my other copy was in more of a shambles than I thought. And I was trying to get together an ESC for um repeat robotics and get that tested. That all went didn't go really well. Never got the test off, and don't think I ever really got the second bot fully made until like later, much later into the day. But the first copy was working really well, and my first match was against Titanium White, which is a Bob Ross reference, and it was a little flamethrower, and it was really cool. I have a miniature around here somewhere where it has the head of Bob Ross and some like little happy trees. And that match went well. I didn't get as much weapon engagement, but I still came up away with the win with some good driving and able to eat away at the sides. Unfortunately, I didn't rip off Bob Ross's face.
Um,
um,
did you have any prep or anything go? So, Titanium White was a control bot with a jet stream flame type weapon that came through the front. Was
yeah.
there anything that you were in particular prepping towards this match?
I just threw some gold tape on. I've found that in other matches going up against flamethrowers and such, I'm pretty good with my flame resistance because I have such a dense infill and everything. And I also use the other magical spray, and that is got some heat resistance to it. Um, so and it works out fairly well. Um, when I went against Buffalo Wings, I didn't get much. No damage from the emulsifier flame bot, and really a couple of burn spots from this intense flame, but nothing breached my TPU, which was actually kind of surprising. But other than the Captain tape or I guess there's some motorcycle muffler tape, something like that that's been going around that it seems to be a little bit more resilient. But yeah, that's about the only additional prep that I did for it. Um, for anything really. I don't, because of Stag's configurations, I've tried to make it pretty much universal to whatever I face. So then what was it? Root Locust. And Root Locust went the full 3 minutes and they won the JD, which recalling the match seemed to be accurate. I think they just had a little bit more damage, a little bit more aggression. And I wasn't getting two things. Uh, Going back to the foam wheels, I really missed the traction of Matt's wheels. That's two different worlds when it comes to traction and pushing. And I didn't have the inhibitors on my forks, so the inhibitors would normally keep the forks riding above the plywood floor just ever so slightly, about the width of a paper. So I didn't dip into holes as much. and I forgot to do that with this last set of forks. So every nook and cranny I was hitting. So Root Locust took me on that one. The next one was, I forgot who I fought after that. I'm very sorry, but they beat me. That's probably why I forgot. And because I had, well, anyways, don't want to take up the whole 30 minutes trying to jog my memory.
Let me see. I'm just gonna
I
pull
can
up
tell you
the.
who you fought. You fought Rain X.
Yeah, I fought, was that Rain-X? No, there was Rain-X and there was another one that was a beater bar that I beat, and a younger kid that was sitting right next to us.
Power on.
Power on.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Power and I had a match. It went for a little while. Some good back and forth. He was smacking me around, and but then he had some issues, lost power, I guess. I don't know what happened in there, but won on a knockout on that one. And then Rain-X at the end of the match was a pretty decent vert, two-wheeled vert with probably a 6-7 inch blade. And that's the first robot 3-pounder that's knocked me out in a long time, since I think probably 22. And he breached through the back of my robot, the TPU. He knocked the UHMW off alignment, caught something, and the whole innards of my robot, well, not the whole, just the ESC, just burned. And it was like a nice slow burn right up against the wall. Kevin was mad at me for messing up the floor. So I figured it was a pretty good event. 2-2. Uh, and that's kind of what I expected, with not the amount of prep that I normally put into it. When I was prepping for the finals, I was way prepped. I had a week or two of driving practice and all that, so I was really confident. This I was still confident on how the robot was going to work, but there were still some questions. And some of my missed old learnings repeated themselves. So, and it's a great reminder going into making version 4 and other things. How about you, Corey? Well, how'd the prep go for you? You, sir, were amazing. You broke your trend. You
What
came in
trend?
early. You had your
Yes,
robots all set.
yes. I generally am skating in around 8 or 9 in the morning. This time I was there right when the doors were opening up, basically. Um, Prep was pretty solid. I sustained minimal damage at finals. It was more cosmetic than anything. Going in, there were two major issues that I needed to fix. My drive was cutting out at finals, and the belts were getting thrown every match. So, I swapped to slightly smaller motor that wasn't pulling as much current, so the ESCs were happier, and I didn't lose any drive relating to that. And I swapped to the traditional black fabric V belts over the orange cogged rubber belts. They didn't stretch. Um, so going into this event, I was ranked number 2, so I was pretty excited. My first match was a bye. Going into round 2, I was fighting either Alex Curtis with Floor Letter Word or Bunny Holly, which is like a 4-wheel drive Bite Force type robot. I had been scouting both robots throughout the day. I went down to the cage and I sat cage side. Floor Letter Word just wasn't up. It wasn't functioning properly. The blade didn't really spin properly, and so Bunny Holly was able to get some good hits. Bunny Holly did work the entire match, and so it went to Bunny Holly. Going into Bunny Holly, I wanted to utilize shorter forks so I could get the better reach. And when the match started, spun up the weapon, kind of crept over just to make sure that I didn't know how they were going to drive. Fortunately, their drive wasn't the greatest. The weapon was solid, so I didn't want to jump too far into uh, over overconfidence. So I went in. We went nose to nose. No real big engagements. I kind of backed up and made sure I was lining up a smart shot. Kind of went around them. I hit their wedge. It kind of popped them back, and then I went in for another hit, and it made them do a backflip. And as they were landing, I struck the back of their robot, and it completely ripped the back plate off and threw it into the ceiling. And I pulled the guts out through the back plate, well, the lack of back plate. And as I was charging in, they tapped out, so I hit them as they were tapping out. And then their ESC went up in flames, so that was kind of cool. I've never set a robot on fire.
There was a lot of fire this event. Like
Yeah.
there was
Yes.
like now that's three that I can think of off the top of my head, myself included, that ended in fire.
And then going into so 2-0 technically, buys are now considered wins. So round one was a buy, round two was a win. So I had a high seed going into the next match. I was being paired up against either Slamson or Vorion. Slamson, sorry, Craig, you just have some type of curse that floats all over you. Slamson was doing great, shut off, and then as Craig tapped out, literally a couple seconds later, Slamson started driving like nothing happened. So I
I
went
love the
against
little,
Vorion.
I love the little Cyclops eye he's got.
Yeah, he's definitely all about the aesthetics. Um, Going into the Vorion match, Brandon had been having a lot of electrical gremlins. Well, fortunately, he figured them out going into our match. I had fought Brandon previously. I used long fork. That was kind of my this was kind of my Achilles heel. Basically, we went nose to nose and we're kind of at a stalemate. Brandon was able to kind of get under me and kind of push me back, and he ripped one fork off. And then we went nose to nose again, and he rammed me, and I kind of popped back up on the wall, and I was freed after being stuck there for a little bit. Both forks were off, and I was able to fully engage into Brandon, and I was I was very happy because I was getting nice solid bites into him. I chewed through his wheel guard. Um, Unfortunately, I'm finding out the weakest link. So previously it was the belts. Now the belts stay on, and so my weapon can actually work properly, but the ESC could not handle the amount of current my weapon was pulling, and I actually desoldered the wire out of one of the phase wires out of the ESC. That's why my weapon stopped. Um, it kind of stunk. However, it was fun. It was going back and forth, pushing match and whatnot. Go forward, I will be repairing that, finding something that can handle the beast. Overall, it's fun. I always enjoy a driving match against like Brandon or anyone like that. So it was all in good fun. Unfortunately, 1-1 or 2-1. That's kind of my record for this event. I did not qualify. Synthesis started will be coming back in April. It is registered, but we'll see. The downside to the large robots is you have so fewer fights. Like a 3 pounder, you can fight 4, 5, 6 times, whereas a 30 pounder or a 12, you may only get 2 or 3 fights in the entire event. So it kind of makes you reconsider about not entering a 3-pounder as well.
Yeah, it's a tall order to like do like a 3-pounder and something else.
Not to mention the fact that when you're working with a larger, like a 12 or a 30, these robots often have much more complicated electronics going on inside of them. They need more fine tuning, and more fine tuning plus less fights can really equate to some interesting gremlins throughout.
And if you think about it too, a 3-pounder you can safely test if you build a 4x4 and 8x8 test cage, and you can hit things and you can see the failures. I can't necessarily take my 30, throw it in. I don't have the room to do a full test cage, full test, spin it up, drive, and hit things. They are very dangerous, and
It's
Oh
so
yeah.
outside of tying it down, putting it in my in my basement, I can spin it up, which is fine. I can't drive it and spin it up, so I can either test the drive or test the weapon, but not both at the same time. Um, yeah, it was it's kind of a give and take, love him and hate him kind of
yeah.
thing. But Mitch, how was your viewing experience of the event?
Yeah, so I was not competing this time around. I was able to tune in and out of the stream. And what I can say, there were some amazing fights like this time around. We saw, I mean, obviously some returning beasts at every single dumpster with a, Silent Spring, uh Promheta, Chonkiv. But I think there were also a lot of newer bots that we saw really, rise up. It seemed like we had a lot more new bots doing really well for themselves in this event. I think it looked from my point of view on the stream, it looked like it was a very smooth event. It looked like it was people were having fun. Um, and I think the fight quality was just amazing. Um, Hats off to them. Taking a look here, and I don't memorize robot names. I have the lovely Brett Zone open. I mean, there were a couple bots that kind of stood out to me personally. Most notably, I mean, we gotta give props to Basics.
Oh yeah.
Uh, that thing is,
Donald.
yeah, I think it's terrifying. And I mean, he's been running that thing for a little while, but it's, especially this past event, he really showed that, that design can go far. He beat Eruption, which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the top seeds of the 3-pound division. Um, Another one that stands out to me is Blunder. That thing moves amazing. That thing hits hard. You don't see shufflers with, vertically spinning weapons very often because they can they don't tend to move very well. So I think, Blunder is quite innovative. Um, and I think Big Bots seemed like they had a great day too. Undertaker is one that I know do quite well. It hit hard. They took on beat Vorion. It was good seeing Goose working as well. And I mean, 12s, of course, you saw Adamant Barrage,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
the the
congrats
robot
to
that
Will.
yeah, the
Yeah.
robot that knocked out two robots barely moving out of its starting square.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I think once Will gets the drive stronger, I think that's definitely going to be even more of a force to reckon with. If it's
absolutely.
if it's having that luck without driving, well, Will's got something going.
Yeah.
I think that's all part of his master strategy. If you stay in the corner, it's harder to get around behind you.
Yeah, it overall it just looked like a really good, energetic event. A lot of great fights, a lot of stuff happening.
We can't
Um,
we can't forget about the robot that everyone thought was a 30, Tabby 12, which was probably by far
Oh,
the most
yeah,
dense, enormous. I mean, Full Court is a big robot, but this robot, it's just so beefy, chunky.
Hmm.
I'm very excited to see. I don't know if it functioned well, if it I think they had a little bit of a drive issue, but seeing that thing actually
Yeah.
properly function is pretty scary. I definitely saw they fought Psycho, and I looked at JMO and I said, JMO, you having PTSD from when you fought Full Court? And he chuckled.
Yeah.
Well, what about the prom head of Buzzkill? Was it no, it was prom head of Carmen fight where Zach hit the other robot right out of midair? Was that was Carmen, right?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Um, yeah, that was a really well-timed hit. I
Yeah.
know Mike was a little upset, but I mean,
Yeah, well, understandably so.
absolutely.
That was like cinematic. Like it was just how can you not like that had to be planned, but it's all live.
Yeah. And then we got to see Torrent up in flames against Buzzkill. I mean,
Right.
Donald has the battery kind of hanging out in the back of the robot, and he only has really thin steel protecting it. So, I mean, come on, Donald. You got to relocate that battery if you can.
Yeah, it was funny at the like the little panda breakfast we have. It was like, "Hey, brother in fire." It was kind of funny. Maybe a be there moment. But
And then
so
one other thing I want to touch on is that I mean we saw something that we don't see too often. We saw it was a late hit. And what I want to say is that like from the stream perspective, from watching personally, it seemed like they actually handled that really well.
Which match are you talking about?
This would be Caldera 12 versus Maximizer. And I believe Maximizer started literally a quarter of a second early, and
yeah.
there was a hit. Sorry, I say late hit, early hit. It started early. They Glenn was amazing about it. Said, "Yeah, no, we'll fight." Didn't want to win like that, and so I think that goes to show that NHRL is getting really solid about handling situations like this where there's builder error or staff error, anything like that. Um, doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it's much of an issue anymore, which I think is great.
I think having the lights for the tap outs and unsticks
Yes.
is a really good visual cue because you can't necessarily hear anything,
Oh yeah.
you know. So having those visual cues was really good.
Yeah. People watching from like the stream, you don't realize how loud these things actually are. I remember um watching it was Synthesis 30 versus Chonkiv. And right, you hear the crowd cheering for either side of things, hopefully Synthesis, but and then the moment these robots spun up and started hitting each other, it's like you could not hear the crowd.
No,
It
it
was
was go ahead.
it was it's genuinely shocking, especially with the 12s and 30s, how loud these things can get. And so having visual cues for the cage where you can tell exactly what's going on without having to listen. Not to mention some people wear ear protection at the cage because these things are so loud, and you have a 10 pounds of metal hitting a 30-pound robot. It's a gunshot sound, basically, that level of volume. And so having that visual cue to eliminate sound as an issue, I think is a really good step forward.
Well, there was one of the matches in the finals. I was trying to free the big finger mini bot that Ariel was driving, and there was something going on near the doors with the synthesis of whatever robot, and they were opening up the doors. I had no clue that the doors were being opened. And Ariel was in my like this close to my ear, just screaming, and I could not hear her.
Oh,
She's like, stop moving, stop
was
moving.
was that against Emulsifier, maybe?
No, it was one of the previous matches. Uh, did we have
Probably.
Aries that day?
We had Aries. We also had anxiety. I mean, I had a lot of anxiety that
Yeah.
day too.
Doubt, right?
Um, last this event, I must say, I was sitting in the audience and watching matches. The level of professional production, like it's insane. Like
Mm.
watching the Beetle Cage, they had to have been at least 10 or 12 like staff, like everyone was in their spot. Like there was three different camera people. There was Kevin was driving the house robot. Then there's the manager, he's standing next to Kevin, kind of, I'm guessing. He was kind of telling everyone where to go, and like then you have the safety crew with the equipment in the event of flame a battery goes up in flames. So it was very impressive just what it was back in 50 Day Street to what it is now. It's just such next level as far as how much goes into each match. And I guess Kevin and Ariel were saying they basically have everything down to the second as far as okay, in in the next 15 seconds, these people are gonna swap out, these people are gonna go in, and it's just I was just blown away by how like much goes into it, and kudos to the NHRL.
Yeah.
They def
I remember
def
early on. This was beyond 50 Day Street, but this was September of 21, my first event. And I remember watching, I was like, oh, this is great. They have cameras everywhere. But it seems very unorganized. There was a lot of camera crews standing in front of the cage to where we wouldn't be able to see the fight happening. There was a lot of, referees moving around and people didn't know where they were supposed to be. So they've really stepped up their game when it comes to just the general organization of how these things are run.
And can I say the flame protocol? This is the first time my bot
Mm.
caught on fire, and I got to experience it firsthand. And it was really great. They did um an in-cage assessment, and it wasn't just a in-cage assessment. They looked at the bot, they waited, they looked at the bot maybe one or two more times, with like slight intervals between them to make sure that it wasn't going to go up, kind of pulled it closer, hit it with the fire extinguisher, looked at it again, put it in the sand bucket, and outside it went. And then Jim came out and they re-inspected it, hit it with the flamethrower, fire extinguisher again, and just to make sure everything was out and copacetic. And it was very smoothly done.
Yeah.
Did you get to see the dog? Did the dog ever make it to the stream? It must have.
yeah,
It,
it did. And
yeah,
then
the dog made it to the stream, and then midway through the day, all of a sudden I see a video on YouTube of Mike, bouncing back and forth with the dog.
Yeah. Hey, what are you gonna do with the dog, huh? Hey,
Yeah.
play with it.
Put it in the 30 cage.
You know? It was kind of fun. It was creepy. A little,
I
I'm not gonna lie.
I need to clarify. This is a robot dog. This is a robotic dog that was walking around the pits and the production area, all of that. Um,
Yeah, it was like a Boston Dynamics spot dog, but a
yeah.
mini. And so it had like a lot of the properties. The articulation and everything was amazing, but it had this like little mouth on it. It that would just spin. And I have no idea what it was, but definitely like if it was a dog's mouth, you wouldn't want to put your hand in there. It's just not a good idea. It looks a little hungry.
My
But
my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, I believe that actually acts as almost a like surroundings detection, so it knows it's not about to run into a person.
it has like the 360 camera. That
Hmm.
video, I think, was actually done by the dog
Okay. Interesting.
because I didn't recall seeing any camera crew.
Hmm.
So it's crazy. I think that's how they did it, but it was crazy. I really liked it because I was like doing the jig with the dog, and then I walked away, and then you see Julian being like, "What the heck am I gonna do with this?"
The things that happened at NHRL. I still
Yeah.
get flashbacks to that blow up swan floaty that we apparently are attaching to an RC car now. Oh, let's just go drive it around all of the audience.
Yeah. Flammable penguins? What?
So yeah,
Um,
overall, I think this is an amazing event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And then
go ahead.
going, then there's Motorama, which is the 15th and 16th of February, and then the first weekend in March is the next qualifying round for NHRL.
Yeah.
I have my 12 and 30 synthesis registered for Moto, and then for March I have synthesis 12 and a new robot called Tiny Toucan in the 3 pound class. However, you'll just have to watch the stream to see what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what we didn't talk about the event? We didn't miss it. Apparently nobody else did. Minibots. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you for catching another episode.
Thank you.
Be sure to catch the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
See ya.
Later, nerds.